let's just start by you you giving us a brief background of what you do, what your work is, and because my audience, you may be new to them. And then
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a coach, and I spent most of my adult life in the business world, 34 years. And then I got burned out, and I didn't know why. And at the same time, I was in my mid 50s. I went through a divorce, had trauma with my kids. So I became a coach, selfishly to heal myself. And I realized that my impact with others was directly proportional to how much I, how vulnerable I was with myself about my challenges, just being honest, in asking for guidance. So that's kind of what I do. I'm a kind of a semi-retired. I'm in my mid 60s, so I coach about 20 hours a week.
well, great, because I know John from our Power of Eight men's group, and we come up with some very interesting topics. And the reason I wanted to ask John on here today is because um, the topic came up about triggering. And John, like me, is interested in ancestral healing and doing some very deep um, introspection about our childhood wounding. And part of my interest in this is because I've done a couple of podcasts with Steve Hart, and we've talked about emotional safety. We've talked about childhood trauma, but we've never dived into this issue of triggering. What causes triggering? Why do we get triggered? And what kind of impact it's having on our relationships? So I'm going to let John talk from there, and then I'll chime in with questions as we go.
Okay. So triggering, and this is my perception. Okay, I'm not saying it's the truth, but from my perception, what happens is we will feel some form of fear, shame, guilt, self-judgment. And what happens when we feel those feelings is we unconsciously, to protect ourselves, our ego will project those feelings outward because we don't want to feel those things. So our ego's job is to protect us from feeling bad. And it projects those fears of feeling those things without us even being aware of it. So then someone else comes into our energy field and we are having a discussion. All of a sudden, that other person feels that projection. And then they like react to it. Like, like we said something with bad intentions, but that isn't necessarily what happened. They just felt what we were not willing to feel ourselves. And they're like, I don't like this. And they assume that we were intending that person to feel that from us. And that's why they react the way they do. Like, how could you say that? I'm like, what the hell? I didn't say anything. That's what's going on. So first, you just need to recognize this happens all the time because we are not necessarily um, being honest about how we really feel. I'll give you a great example when you're in school. Everyone that went to school typically has either been bullied by their parents or are bullied on the playground. So bullies and I was bullied as a kid. Bullies typically are bullied by their parents. They go on the playground and they feel ashamed because they were bullied. So guess what they do? They project that fear and they end up acting out this on innocent kids because they're so ashamed. So when they find someone who's ashamed of being bullied, like them, they look at them very critically with self-judgment or judge that kid, and then that's why they bully them. Like, how can you be afraid of bullies? Who are you? But deep down, they're feeling this deep shame that somehow they caused their father or mother to bully them, or brother, or whatever. So that's the most common thing that we can relate to is bullies tend to be very sensitive and they pretend not to be, and that's why they bully people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what came up for me when you were talking about that is that I've looked into um, relationship coach videos and that talk about triggering, but they only give you step one, step two, step three, how to deal with it. They very rarely have I found anybody who will break it down as to, what's the root cause, where is it coming from, and to address it on that level rather than sort of just kind of handle it when it comes up. So this is why I'm very interested in this, and I want to relate this to something that's very dear to my heart, which is the subject of emotional safety, especially in relationships and intimate relationships, but with relationships with colleagues and friends too, to not get triggered into these fear-based reactions that we have that are rooted in something that we've projected out and we're afraid of and we don't want to deal with. It's so much easier for people to just say, well, you're the problem. If you wouldn't have said that, or if you wouldn't have acted that way, I wouldn't have gotten triggered. But I want to go much deeper into how can we create this sphere of emotional safety. So bringing this thing up about the bully is very accurate because I've witnessed this when I was in school, and there was some really obnoxious kids, and you could just see the misery on their face, but they hid the misery with a smirk, you know. And I know that these are adaptations to something deeply more dysfunctional. So could you comment a little more about how we can actually do something for ourselves, whether it's ancestral work or introspection or doing some journaling, so that we can begin to move towards creating emotional safety?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple practical things that you can do. First, just know that projection happens all the time. So you need to assume that you're not aware of what you're projecting. So then you take one relationship at a time and you start getting curious. So a great exercise to do is to imagine your energy field alongside someone else's energy field who you trigger, or they trigger you, doesn't matter. So for example, Kevin, do you mind playing along?
No problem. I'm here.
Okay. So what I want you to do is think of someone who you might be triggered by. And I want you to close your eyes and I want you to see that person's energy field. Using your imagination, what comes up when you see that person's energy field?
Well, immediately when you said that, I just saw kind of a smoky cloud around them, um, dense, like like you would see if you're around a campfire and there's just a lot of particles in the air. I mean, that was the image that
Okay.
came up.
Okay. Now I want you to keep that imagery and now put your energy field next to theirs and tell me what's going on between the two of you.
Well, it seems like when I draw nearer to that person in my imagination, the smoke is drifting over onto me. It's like
Okay. Yeah.
just coming and covering me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's telling you something. Um, so what could be happening there, and it doesn't matter that you solve this, but see, we have this habit of giving away our energy, our power. We're afraid of our power. You remember that Marianne Williamson quote that we talked about in our group? It's not the darkness we're afraid of. We're afraid of our light. We're afraid of our power. That's why when, at the end of a game or some event, sporting event, it's very few people like that pressure, right? To produce with the pressure on them. Most people shy away from that. So what's happening is when you're next to this person, you're taking their energy, okay? And who knows who started it, doesn't matter. So here's what you can do. Um, you can take back all of your power. So what I want you to do is keep that image in your mind's eye of this other person's energy and yours. And I want you to basically go to that other person and pull back all of your power, all of your energy into your heart. It should feel like you're sucking it back into your heart, and you'll feel it. Now, watch what happens to that person's energy field.
I see it collapse,
Yeah, kind of like a balloon that was popped or the air was
almost
let
as
out.
if like my energy was fueling them and I was doing it unconsciously.
Could be.
Wow.
Right, right. Yeah, so that's a very practical way to deal with people that can be difficult for you is it kind of like just take responsibility for your energy hygiene. Are you giving away energy? Are you taking energy? And once you do this enough, you'll start realizing, well, I guess I have a pattern. Then you can go deeper. What's causing that pattern? Okay.
Well, what I like about this, John, is that you can do this in the safety of your own room and not have to be in their presence. Um, there's a great line in A Course in Miracle that says, never try to forgive someone in their presence.
Oh,
Do it within yourself first, where you feel back to this emotional safety,
yeah.
because that's really where I want to go with this is
Tell you more about how we can feel safe. The reason we feel threatened is what? What are the
because we feel
reasons we feel
judged.
threatened? We feel
We
judged.
feel judged, condemned, criticized,
Right.
except we feel excluded.
Yeah, it's all about feeling judged, right? So what if we know that's the truth, that we just don't like feeling judged, and we know the truth that when others are judging us, when we perceive others are judging us, it's just a projection of ours that we are afraid to feel our self judgment. then we can actually address the problem of emotional safety. We have to catch ourselves judging ourselves. And
Now that's interesting. Yeah.
when we do it, and we do it all the time, then we say, aha, thank you. Now I can love myself instead of judge myself. It's a choice. Love is a
Hmm.
choice. It's always there, 24/7. We just need to choose it instead of this pattern of judging. Because where did it all start? It started because we assumed that we weren't good enough. We assumed we said something wrong and it caused our parents to do whatever they did. It's all not real. We just need to realize, okay, go back to take a photo from your childhood, you're 4 years old or whatever, stare at it and say, how could I be mad at that person, at that kid? And reverse this flow of self-judgment. When we do that, then we look at someone who we normally would judge. We don't judge them anymore because we see they're hiding their shame for judging themselves.
What an interesting psychological twist this is, because what you're saying is that the secret to our own self-empowerment is to realize the self-judgment. Is that what you're saying? Because what we do is we conveniently dismiss that or forget that and just say, no, you're the problem. You're the problem why I feel judged. And you lose your power when you do that.
You got it.
So the secret right then is to just say, no, I'm in charge of my own power and I'm self-judging. So that's a whole new idea for me. And I really thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't come up with this by myself. I learned this by taking a course in positive intelligence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've never seen
It,
that book.
yeah. They have a tremendous program. Highly recommend it. And in fact, at this point, all of my clients go through the course before I coach them.
This is helpful because being able to be in a relationship with someone and realize that maybe our own self-judgment is a lot of the sabotaging mechanism behind why there's personal conflict, especially in intimate relationships, because um, we all want to just feel accepted, loved, appreciated, and so if there's this underlying mechanism that we're not aware of that we conveniently have dismissed, that's sabotaging it. Well, no wonder men and women get into these dynamics, and so um, you know,
Yeah.
I really admire what you're sharing here.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it's just our program back when we were kids. See, all of these saboteur strategies, they actually were necessary when we were small because we felt like we had to do that to survive. We didn't have any other strategies. So within each, and there's several saboteurs, there's like, including the judge is one, there's 9 others. And they all have like the hyperachiever. So that's someone who goes through life and they will not feel good about themselves unless they are achieving something. So it's conditional love. And a lot of very, very successful people have that saboteur strategy. Um, and it's interesting, all of these strategies have good qualities to them. Like hyperachiever is very goal oriented. Nothing wrong with that. But it's when you overuse it, that's when it becomes a sabotage strategy. There's a hypervigilant strategy, which is they're always looking out for danger. Anything can go wrong at any time. And there's some good qualities to that, but if you take it to an extreme, then you can't relax. Right. So on and on. Yes, it's all about love and compassion. That's the name of the game. If I can love myself, I can love others. They we basically trade the love, so we're not projecting the fear. Um, and it's a process.
How much
to
do you
change.
think the way we have self-sabotaged is actually coming from unresolved issues from our ancestors, that whatever genetics we have and the impressions that have happened in their life are they're downloaded into us. We might be
Yeah,
running on a program that we're just that goes to another time and another place, but it's still there for us to process for them. What do you
I
think
agree.
about that?
I agree. I think, you know, when we're 4 or 5 and our parents lie to us and we know they lied to us and we start lying because of that, that didn't start with our parents. That's ancestral. And so there's this big fundamental lie that we're afraid if we're honest, we're going to lose love or we're going to lose a friend. And that lie, and there's guilt that comes with that. It just builds and builds and builds. So we end up not being truthful. Like we won't say what we really want or what we really feel because we're afraid. Well, they might not like that. But that's the kind of DNA we've inherited. And we just need to be honest. Okay, let's deal with it. So then you get into how do you help the ancestors? Everything comes down to being present. If you can be present with all of your senses while you're feeling whatever it is you're feeling, so your senses ground you in the body, then the power of that or the judgment of that energy that we're judging, that's a bad energy. It kind of leaves us. We can kind of allow, it's almost like we're connected to everything then when we're fully present. And it just somehow that energy stops feeling like it's um, bad or good. That makes sense.
Yeah. And what comes up for me about lying, um, I've observed just by watching young parents um, that say, "Oh, my child just lies all the time," and what just as an objective observer, what I've noticed is, well, whenever the child does tell the truth, they get reprimanded for it.
Mhm.
So we as parents teach our children to lie because what they want is, like if they do something wrong and they admit it, you go, thank you for admitting it. I mean, I'm real proud of you. But they don't do that. The reprimanding that, and it goes back to triggering again. And so, what else is the child going to do but say, "Well, I don't get any accolades for telling the truth. I get shamed." So there's a little dynamic that goes on, and I think that's ancestral too. It's been handed down and handed down and handed down, and it's got
Right.
a momentum like a freight train that we
Right.
inherit.
Agreed. I agree
So my
100%.
my recommendation to any new parents: don't give your child a hard time when they tell the truth. praise them. Not that there's not
Yeah.
consequences. I don't mean that at all, but this is a psychological thing you've got to create.
Yeah. Agreed. And you have to look underneath um, the behavior that that they're seeing. Um, it's all because of a lack of being able to communicate what they really are feeling. So if a child not is perceiving they're not getting the attention that they want, they will act out. And if you react to their acting out, nothing gets solved. But if you ask what's really going on, like what are you really trying to say? You're trying to say you're not getting enough attention. What then they'll be honest and then they stop that behavior. So the key is when somebody is in a saboteur pattern, we can't react to that. We have to go underneath that. What's really going on? What are they really unable to say? So the quality of our life ends up being the quality of our communication with ourselves. Are we really truly communicating with myself? What is it that I want, what I need? And then if we can do that successfully, then we can communicate with someone else.
John, I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks ago, we kind of, in our group meeting, we talked about something similar to this. And I brought up the comment that attention is a form of love. And when you give attention to someone, especially allowing them to speak and you're not criticizing them and you're acknowledging their feelings, any kind of attention, especially in the dating world. And then for whatever reason, you withdraw that attention on that level, it can cause a very negative reaction in a person, and they can just get almost like they come down, like a hangover effect. And I've noticed that strange dynamic. And once again, people love the attention, but when you pull it away, they feel betrayed. And that's part of this deep dynamic that goes on between human beings. And enlightenment to me is somebody who has realized all your hangups. I mean, that's when you can become aware of these issues within yourself and take your power back. In fact, I don't use the word enlightenment. I use the word enheartenment to bring the heart back into homeostasis. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. With the perception of a withdrawal of love is the deepest wound. Yeah. But the truth is we're doing that to ourselves because we're judging ourselves. And that's why we feel like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I can't give love to that person because I don't feel like I can. There's like a shutting down. And here's something that's really interesting. Whenever we feel there's like only one option, it means we're not in reality. There's always infinite possibilities. That's what love is, infinite possibilities. Whenever we feel stuck, wait a minute, there's only one option or maybe two. That tells us we're not even accessing love. We're shutting off love.
This was a fantastic talk. I appreciate you coming on today. You gave us a lot of good information, and I think my audience is going to really want to hear more in the future. So are you available if anybody wants to contact you? Is there a link I can put up?
Yeah, absolutely. They can just go on my website or just contact me directly.
Okay,
Let
I'll post the
me,
website up here.
yeah, so I can send you that information and you could post on the podcast. Would that work?
Absolutely. Thank
Well,
you so much,
thanks
John,
for
for
inviting
doing
me.
this.
Yeah,
And I look forward to more in the future. So bless you, and we'll see you next
you
time.
too. Take care.